Charlie, good
afternoon,
evening.
Ross. How are you, Ross?
Afternoon, it's 7 o'clock, mate. But anyway, as we just saw there, I hate to start the episode on a down note, but we lost one of our South Florida ruggers this past weekend, who you just showed scoring a try on Friday night against the Colorado Exos. That was Javon Lecius, otherwise known as Rico Stacks on social media. Unfortunately, he passed away this weekend. And as Charlie showed you there, scored a try, was a member of the SoFlo Rugby family, who we we really embraced this season as part of the Florida rugby community. They've really been trying to get that team going, and they've tried really hard. And they played a very tough Colorado Exos team, built with D1 college athletes on Friday night, and showed up there and hung in there for a good while. Charlie, you were at that game, and then we got the terrible news this morning that Javon just passed away this weekend. So we send our thoughts out to anybody watching this who knew Javon, obviously the members of the SoFlo rugby team and anybody that played. I just refed him a few weeks ago, against Palm Beach. So it was terrible news to start this week. So I know they're definitely going to try and play their game this weekend against Okapi in memory of Javon. So that's great to see. Hopefully the boys can come out there and really represent an unfortunate, a very, a privileged young man who got to play the game of rugby, which we were glad to have him. He's a good football player as well. And unfortunately, he's no longer with us. But it's good to see that the SoFlo boys I'm sure he wanted them to play the game this weekend if they could.
Yeah, of course. And they are going to set up a GoFundMe to help out the family. So we'll be posting that on our media soon.
Yeah, so pay attention to Charlie's social media with Rugby FL, and he'll post that link as soon as Ryan Forston, the president and founder of SoFlo Rugby Club, once he gives that to Charlie will post in all the necessary places, and you'll be able to help out Rico's family if you can. All right. Well, again, Charlie, I hate to start like that, but we had to talk about it. And this is episode 27 of Talking Florida Rugby Occasionally. The regular season, I want to say it's over, but it's not quite over. As I just mentioned, there is one regular season game this weekend with SoFlo and Okapi at D4, but it doesn't matter because they've already announced the playoff matchups for the 10th for D4. So it's just sort of a friendly game to finish things off. It was postponed from a previous date. So we're not quite at the end of the regular season, but basically, Charlie, right? We've got, I think, all of our playoff matchups set now. Some starting the 3rd, this coming Saturday with some D2 and D3 stuff, which we'll get to later, including our predictions, perhaps. Oh, one high school game as well. Yeah. Cardinal Gibbons, who we'll talk about as well in a little bit, who have got their stuff together, as they say. I would use another S word, but they've got their stuff together. And they're starting to play like the Cardinal Gibbons of old. And it's coming at just the wrong time for their potential opponents in the playoffs. But we shall get to that in a little while. Charlie, what did you get up to this weekend? I refereed Fort Miami against Indian River Women in a little friendly competition. It was a forfeit by Indian River, but it was a great match. 80 minutes of fun. We had lots of tries from Fort Miami, but the Indian River girls hung in there and they traded players here and there. It was a great day. What did you get up to this weekend?
Well, I had these two experiences that was so contrasting, which was at the SoFlo game, 7 o'clock in the evening when the sun was setting, so beautiful. And then the next day, 2 o'clock 2 o'clock at Gibbons. Oh my God. I mean, it really made me thought, and I posted a picture that got a little bit of attention is why do we play at these insane hours? Why? I mean,
well, listen, you and I agree on this.
If subject. You have the choice, can we play at 7? We can. Let's play at 7. I mean,
I understand it's tough for some teams.
Enjoyable. And even, I was I was up there just taping. I had an umbrella for the sun. And man, I was like dehydrating, and I was just thinking of the kids down there on that turf. Oh my God!
I was on grass Saturday, and it was bloody hot. That was a 12 o'clock game in Boynton.
I know they're going to play at 4 o'clock this weekend, so that's going to help a little bit.
Yeah, listen, if you're out there and can schedule the game on a Friday or Saturday night, I know it's tough because some kids work and adults work.
It's not always possible, of course.
It's not always possible. Night rugby is listen, when I played night rugby, it was always way more fun. You normally got a bigger crowd out there, especially on the Friday night. Yeah,
of course.
But that's another story for another time. Maybe we'll talk about it in the open mic at the end of things. Let's talk about our sponsor, Charlie, before we get to anything else. As you can see on your screen there in the navy rectangles at the bottom corners of the screen. If you own a business, or if you have a 401k, or you need a 401k, Go to 401k Florida. Their business is to tackle your retirement plan needs and goals. The team has the expertise in the field of retirement plans, both big and small. So if your retirement plan hasn't been reviewed in a while, Charlie, has your retirement plan been reviewed in a while?
Oh, yes, it has. It's always the same. No retirement. It says no retirement.
It says 0, right? mine is similar. But if you do have a retirement plan and it needs reviewed, consider a complimentary, that's free, gratis consultation by 401k Florida. So visit 401kfl.com to kick things off. And a massive thanks to Mick Graham, obviously from Brevard, as always, for supporting the podcast, and rugbyfl.com, which Charlie puts a lot of work into every day. And doesn't always get recognized by everybody. Mick Graham has recognized the contribution that Charlie gives to Florida Rugby, and we appreciate that. With his sponsorship, of course, the sponsorship has paid for this new house behind me, as you can see, Charlie.
Not bad, not bad.
Well, you can see my actual house just behind it too, because I'm outside the pole. There you go. So you can see it just there. I move that way slightly. Oh, there you go. That's better. All right. So yeah, visit 401kfl.com or call 321-610-3200. You may even get to talk to Mick Graham in person. We've had him on the show before. And
he's a great guy. So if you call him, you can talk rugby, forever.
We'd like to thank our other supporters who chipped in last week. Lionel Ruiz from Miami Tridents. Charlie always says that Lionel is the best match secretary in the business.
And he's been around for absolutely ever, I think.
Listen, it's always good to have a consistent match secretary presence in place because it makes life easier for you and me.
Thank you, man.
And thanks to Pancho Lopez, Francisco Pancho Lopez, father of Cisco Lopez. I don't know if Cisco was involved in MLR action this week. I couldn't find any information. Rugby ATL weren't at home, so that's normally where he does the games.
Yeah.
But thanks to Pancho, who refereed that Gibbons game in the blazing heat.
I think Pancho made that donation because he made me go with him to the game. So he just compensated me. No, it was his car, but just to share.
It's compensation for having to deal with him for an hour. Okay.
Exactly.
I understand.
But thank you, Pancho. He always is very attentive.
He's a good bloke. Referee and referee coach this season as well. He's really thrived in that role. He was somewhat surprised when I asked him to referee this weekend, and he did so well. I gave him another game this weekend. So Charlie should be refereeing that SoFlo game. I mean, Pancho, not Charlie. Excuse me. Charlie's not going to be refereeing anything anytime soon. But if you'd like to contribute to the cause here, rugbyfl.com/GoFundMe or Venmo at RugbyFL or PayPal.me/RugbyFL. All the money goes back to the equipment for the most part. And obviously, Charlie puts a lot more effort than I do into this show. I just tend to show up and talk. Charlie does all the graphics and edits the videos and all that, does the graphics, etc. So anything that can help is great. I'm going to give Teddy a break today, Charlie, because I know you spoke with him this week or last week, and he mentioned he's dealing with some family issues at the moment. So we'll give All Day a break and a plug. Exactly. GoAllDay.com and get yourself some cool looking rugby swag. We'll see if Chris Fassel shows up a little later with some Go All Day swag on, like he always does. All right. Next section, we effed up. I was a little late last week. I did go to Taco Bell at the last minute. Then Charlie wasn't answering his messages, so I showed up. We did start a little late last week, but it happens.
That was probably revenge from that time that I was not present. Remember that I had a problem with my internet, so I didn't show up. So I guess you decided to get back to me.
I was panicking both times because I can't do this without you. And also, my head was far too low last week. I've raised it up this week.
Maybe we should try that. Yeah, you were down there for some reason. I don't know.
I was sort of down here.
But maybe we should try that. One episode, just one of the two disappear and see what happens.
No, I'm going to pass on that because we can't do this without each other. We're a two-man team.
Do you like my shirt? Do you like my shirt? It's an original Pumas from the 65 tour to South Africa. Nice. I'm going to believe you.
It's in very good shape. Visa was around in 1965.
Well, maybe it's not.
But it's a quality looking shirt. I'm wearing a New England. What's this? A New England Rugby Union Referee Society shirt. I don't remember who gave me this shirt, but it fits nicely. That's all that really matters, which most of my shirts don't. All right, 3 quick things, Charlie. Before we get to 3 quick things, Saturday was the 150th anniversary of international rugby. Before I told you, well, do you know who played the first game of international rugby?
No, I would assume it was England.
England was one of them. Who was the other team?
Ireland.
No, you're close though.
Wales.
No, keep going. One more.
Scotland.
Scotland.
Really?
Scotland won that game, just like they beat France in the last minute in the Six Nations, which you did have the standings on your graphics earlier. Don't show them though. England finished 5th. Scotland beat France to ensure Wales won the title. I think you could have got some good odds on Wales winning the title because they were so bad in the fall. You certainly got some good odds on Wales winning the championship this year, but I did not put a bet on it. I am a gambling man, but I did not put a bet on that one. There's the final table. France had to beat Scotland, I think by 20 points to overtake Wales. They did not.
Yeah.
They did not win, so they did not overtake Wales. But Italy, what do we do with Italy, Charlie? Do we just let Georgia in? Do we have them play off for a spot or something?
Maybe that spot should be relegation. You go in and out if
Well, it was the Five Nations. It used to be the Five Nations, right? Yeah. So maybe we could just go back to being the Five Nations and forget about Italy. Yeah. All right, 3 quick things. Number 1, college roundup. There was a few college games this week. Queens men, I think it was their first game of the season. I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong. But Life men hosted Queens, and Alex Lawson and Josh Schwartz from Wellington played for Queens. And Life had David Rhymes at 6 and Chase Shaw-Haskin, who was playing second row, which we normally see him in the back row, but he still managed to score from second row. And Jared Miller from Crew continues to start for Life at prop. So again, 3 forwards from Florida in the starting 8 for Life, who won that game 32-10. Queens put up a good performance early. They were hanging in there. They actually had the lead in the first half, but they succumbed in the end 32-10, probably the first game of the season. They were missing their lungs a little bit. Arkansas State also won 41-13 over Davenport. Elvis Searcy, who I can't remember who he plays for. I don't have my spreadsheet up, but he's a Florida kid. He started at 13 for Arkansas State. I have no idea if he scored because ASU isn't as good as some of the other schools with the socials. Even some of these other schools aren't consistent either. Some weeks they post the lineup, some weeks they don't. Some weeks they post 2 scores, some weeks they don't. But anyway, good to see Elvis starting there. On the women's side of things, Lindenwood continued to whoop up on everybody. They beat BYU 70-something. I don't even remember the final score. But Morgan Freeman from former Ruckus, Boynton, etc. FAU. She only played 10 minutes. She was very disappointed, and she did not score. And Life women also won, but I have no idea if our Florida girls played because they didn't give us the lineups. And speaking of Life women are sending 2 teams Tropical Sevens this coming weekend. Hopefully we'll have John Siner on in a little bit here.
Yes,
he is here, so we'll have John in a little bit. And Lindenwood is not sending a team this. We're not going to get the Life Lindenwood matchup that we all want at Tropical Sevens, but Life will be there. So I'm sure they'll surely have a couple of good squads.
Yeah, that's going to be very good.
Yeah, Tropical. I was looking at the schedules today. It's only 4 fields, but it's going to be complete chaos for 2 days on those 4 fields. It's just going to be back to back to back. I think from looking at the schedule, well, ask John. I think they might be starting at about 5:30 in the morning to get all these games in. I'm sure that's not the case, but to get all these games he's got going on there. But a lot of Florida refs are going to be up there representing the state in one of the biggest sevens tournaments. Oh, there you go. Pancho ref that game. Cisco ref that game.
You were looking for Cisco. There he is.
There he is in Marietta refereeing Life versus Queens.
Okay.
All right, let's get to number 2, which has been our consistent number 2. Charlie, I'm going to forgive you for calling it MRL. I'm not sure what MRL is, but it's not MLR.
It sounds
which MLR good. Had their second week of the season, and Cam Dolan, we thought he'd scored last week. MLR tweeted that he scored. I thought he'd scored, and he hadn't scored last week, but he did score this week. The former Naples Hammerhead, number 8, Nola Gold, whooping up on Rooney, 51-28. Who didn't score on Saturday was Houston. The SaberCats put up a big fat 0. Malachi Esdale, former Naples Hammerhead and UCF. He remains with the USA 7 set up for now. And there's the scores from this past weekend. So Malachi being missed by Houston, they didn't score a single point. Mitch Wilson started for New England from Orlando. They won that game, as I said, 32-0. He kicked a penalty in that game. Their main kicker went off, so Mitch stepped up and kicked a penalty. His brother Bailey, who captains Utah now, from the undefeated Utah Warriors, I should mention, he started at number 6 and captained them. And Alex Tucci, former Western, and Okapi came off the bench for Utah in that game, which was AR'd by another former Florida referee, Khalil Harrison, who's based out of Utah now. And then Peter Malcolm, former Taravella Trojan, he started a hooker for San Diego, played the whole 80 minutes, which there's Khalil there, second from the right. Peter Malcolm, former Taravella Trojan hooker, he played the whole game, not something you normally see from a front row. He played the whole game for San Diego in a win over Austin. And then I don't know if you saw that game. We were talking to Evan about it beforehand. The Giltinis, who are stacked with former Wallabies, they crushed Seattle. It wasn't even close. Former Florida referee Lex Weiner was in the middle with the referee with the whistle for that one. So
he was the main referee.
He was the main referee last night. It wasn't on TV. It wasn't the TV game of the week, but it was on the Rugby Network. For those of you that haven't signed up, sign up for the Rugby Network. It's free. And you get every MLR game there, except for the ones that are on national TV, which is 1 or 2 a week, depends. And Lex's mom, Sherry, said he did a solid job, so I'll have to take her word for it because I didn't watch the game. My dad said he did fine. He watched. I'm sorry, my brother watched the game. He lives in Seattle, so he's trying to become a Seawolves fan. Unfortunately, they were down many tries early in that one, and it wasn't pretty, but he said Lex did a good job. And yeah, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that name. The name's bad enough, Dad. I'm not going to try and rip it even more. Number 3, quickly, Chris Thomas, former UCF women's player, continued to remain in the USA Women's Eagles 7 squad. They're going to Dubai to play. It's not the Dubai Sevens, but it's a Dubai Sevens, we'll call it. So they're going to play out there this weekend and continue to prepare for the Olympics. All right, Charlie, do we have an MLR Miami update? Speaking of MLR. No.
There you go.
No. Speaking of, I was thinking about this the other day, Charlie. Do you have any ideas for a name for our Miami MLR team if we ever get one?
Oh my God!
Now, see, the 10s team was called the Miami Sun or Suns. Sun singular.
I hope
we had the Miami Sol was a women's basketball team down there, and they didn't last very long. So I'm not sure if that's.
I hope we're not the Flamingos. I'm still going with the Pitbulls because 305 is gonna, put the money down. That's my.
It can't just be Miami Rugby because there's already a Miami Rugby, like Rugby ATL. Maybe we call it Rugby Miami.
Maybe Miami Rugby will sell that name to them, and
listen, everything has a price. Everything has a price, Charlie.
And they can change to the Bumblebees.
Well, listen. Speaking of the Bumblebees, we were having a laugh about names because there's a couple of teams out there that don't go by their actual names. Well, first of all, Naples Hammerheads are not the Naples Hammerheads anymore. We've been told this, Charlie. So FloridaRugby.org doesn't seem to pay attention to this either. So we're not the only ones, but they are the SWFL Hammerheads now. Swiffle, as we're going to call them. Swiffle Hammerheads, not Naples Hammerheads anymore. They're not the Naples Bears anymore either because the youth team is now with the Hammerheads. So they're just, if you want to call them the Hammerheads, the Heads, I'm going to call them Swiffle because whoever decided SWFL was a good idea clearly didn't think about that. So they're going to be Swiffle from now on for us.
It's going to take some time. Naples.
I think it might have been Rick Kaminsky who mentioned that the Tridents are actually known as Trident RFC. They're not the Tridents.
Yeah,
they're not the Miami Tridents. They're just Trident RFC. Yes. So we're going to call them Trident from now on until they tell us otherwise. And then Bumblebees, Charlie, do you have any history to why they don't like to be called that? I've always seemed to call them that name.
To be honest, I don't know, and I've been around Miami for a long time, but I don't know.
I always thought they did, and then the last couple of years, people have been telling me don't call them that.
I think people use it in a way to, it's.
I mean, listen, I come from England where my team is Wasps. We red, black, and yellow stripes, so I don't understand why they haven't sort of embraced the Bumblebee side of things. But unless somebody wants to come on the pod, which is always, was it rugbyfl.com/join, Charlie?
Join.
Yes. You can come and tell us why they can't be called the Bumblebees. Until then. Listen, everybody's arguing everywhere now that who's called what, and
yeah,
I'm getting messages, and they like to call themselves the Miami Tridents, but they're really Tridents. Listen, until they make up their minds, their official, I think their trademarked name is Trident. I think. Anyway,
I'm not
anybody
sure
wants to jump on and explain to what your actual name is, please come on. As Kerry wants to tell us it's Miami Tridents RFC.
I don't know. We'll
have to wait for... Nobody knows. Doesn't really matter in the end, right? Anyway, speaking of names, Evan Haigh is the general manager of the Florida Youth Rugby Union, and he's going to join us now to sort of give an update as we're through with the U19 regular season. Some teams played 6 games, some teams played 5 games, but we went with sort of a win percentage, I think. So bring Evan in, Charlie, and we'll talk to Evan. Evan, welcome.
Hello.
Evan's in it. Can we hear Evan?
I got you now. Hit the mute button.
Now we can. Evan's in his third location in the evening. He was outside previously. He was in his normal location in front of a mirror. Now he's in front of his what do we call those blinds? They're not blinds, but they're those doors behind him. They have a name that fancy people have.
French blinds.
No, it's not French. It's not.
Anything fancy is French. So,
Anyway, Evan, thank you for joining us this evening.
You're welcome.
Let's talk about the season. I mean, it obviously wasn't perfect. We lost a couple of games here and there for various reasons. But how do you feel about this season overall so far?
I think the biggest theme that I have from the season is a lot of resilience from the clubs. There's some COVID cancellations and COVID reschedules. Everyone just put their head down and decided they wanted to play and to make that happen. It wasn't perfect. And we really only lost one canceled game. Sarasota forfeited a few games through there, and I think they had good talent. They just couldn't keep their kids because they had a lot of football things. So just to kind of keep them going, and that was just too rough a road for them to finish going. But they really did have a solid core within their group. Obviously, it's great to see Naples, as we put it there, but they're really the hammerheads. I got it's old habits die hard on that one.
Swiffle number one.
It is nice to see them rebounding back to their previous glories. So that's a really great thing to see. And just the tightness in the league as a whole, it's always a really, really good sign when it's all that. And you always know it's tight because everybody's double and triple checking your math and making sure that they understand how the tie breaking works and so on. And this year was different because it was difficult. Cardinal Gibbons, we had to give a later start because their football ran longer. So we had to run them starting, and they chose to go 6 weeks in a row. We rolled the dice with that, hoping they didn't have a COVID, and they had one, I think, second weekend. So
it is.
Yeah. So it's the way it was, and there was no way to reschedule that. And because that game was against Naples, that's not feasible for them to come over and play a midweek game or an evening game after another one. So basically what that does, per the policies that we set up a couple of years ago, is we have to defer to win percentage as the primary determining of seedings there. Right. So in the end, we got there pretty good. There was, I think, 2 different teams tied. Both of them came down to head-to-head, which was good. It's always better to do head-to-head because we're a little different in the youth. We try not to do points differential. We want to do points against as the next tiebreaker from there. And that always is a little complicated, and I would much rather go head-to-head, and it worked out nicely with that. And it was always going to be a challenge because we, 6 games, and then we try to do a full playoff series. And I'm looking forward to seeing the playoffs, see how it goes, see how this process works of getting everybody in. We had planned to do something very similar last year, and obviously COVID shut us down. So it'll be very interesting to see how the next month goes and how everybody likes this process. I know there are a few teams who want to run the season a little differently. I think for the vast majority, they all want to see playoffs in some capacity. It's just how we make that work, whether it's more regular season games or more playoff games or multiple divisions in playoffs. There's always ways you can tweak with it, but this year was really just about getting the kids back out in the field and getting them to play. And that was my number one goal with all of this. And I think we've been able to achieve that.
Yeah, 100%. Because we had 10 teams. Again, not everybody. I think the max we saw there was 6 games played. But is there looking for next season perhaps to get everybody playing everybody? And obviously, it really depends on who's. Because obviously, we lost 2 teams from last year with Orlando and Jupiter. Hopefully, they'll be back.
Yeah, I'd like to hope both of them will be back. I also would like to hope that we add a few more. There were a few that we're looking at. There was a group in South Florida, 2 groups in South Florida, one in Fort Lauderdale, looking to try to form teams.
Oh, good. I was going to ask you.
And then there's another one, Palm Beach, man, are trying to form a team too. So there's definitely more groups wanting to do it. But this year was the wrong year to. I told them all, I'm like, listen, if you want to do it, let's try to get into the 7 stuff and try to make that happen. But other than that, trying to recruit and to hold all this stuff down in this environment it's just tough. So the teams that have done well, the traditional, stronger, larger squad teams, and that's a really good sign. That they've been able to withstand this, and the people want to come out and play, and it's going to put them a really good step forwards going forward.
Oh, look at Ross muting himself.
Yeah, muting himself.
Sorry, there was background noise. So Charlie, go ahead. I knew you were going to say something there. It was background noise, so I was.
No, I was just going to ask you because you mentioned that some teams are talking about having a different structure for the championship, which happens pretty much every year, right? I mean, we've had every year
So here's
I can't remember 2 years in a row with exactly the same, because we have to adapt to what's going on, of course.
Correct. So
but my question is, what do you like to see rugby? I know we have to start in January. That's sort of hard to. I mean, we can't do anything. But wouldn't you like to see it so they play more rugby, extended into May? Because there is no national things to look forward. Maybe one or two teams, they go to one of these RCT things in June, but wouldn't that be something to look forward to?
Yeah, I in theory, I think where you're coming from is 100% correct. The problem is, and like you said, so the first problem is we keep flipping every year, and I really want to avoid doing that. Kind of like, I think we tried to go regional. That just doesn't work. I think people need variety and play, but we can't have exonerating. We can't have too much trouble for everybody. So that doesn't work. So we know that we have to kind of keep some form of a whole division together, and then maybe we could split division to create more games and to create a little bit more competitiveness. This year's balance was pretty good. There was only a couple blowout games. Most of the games were pretty good. I think you have to be really careful, and this is what happened when we, say 5 years ago, we tried to go into May because nationals for high schools was like the first weekend of May. So there was a team that was going to nationals. They got it was like an invite to nationals, so they wanted to do that. It was on the same weekend as state championship, so we tried to bump it further into May, and then that was just categorically shut down by the other teams because May gets into a lot of graduations, proms, all this, and we run into that problem in April. To be honest, there's no perfect way to solve the calendar. I'm with you, more games. I think there could be other ways we could achieve it. What we could do, I've always liked the idea of, there's a West Coast team, there's a North team, and then there's, 2 South Florida teams, and we play like all-star rugby. So, because the last thing you want from a parent who's just starting rugby is like, hey, come join rugby. Now you got a 20-game season to come deal with for 4 months straight. That's not going to win over anybody, and no one's going to learn that. Like, yes, the kids who've played and have grown up playing want to play. We have to provide them opportunities to do that. So it's just balancing both of those sides of it. It's one thing. I don't think we need to be too traditional American sport where it's 6 weeks in and out and you're done and then we're there. I think that might be too less for rugby because I think you need more time to learn. But I do think that we can balance it other ways. The other idea that Dave McFadden from Tampa came up with was maybe we start doing some tens tournaments. And there's the person who launched the international tens tournament lives in Lakeland, Florida, and helps Tampa coach the U19s team. So Paul Holmes lives there. So there are different ways that we can.
When would you do that?
What do you mean when? Yeah, when would you fit it? When?
Yeah. When?
That's the $1 million question. I think that's the part that we have to solve in this off season is when, as a group, do we want to settle on a calendar of, hey, listen, this is when we play our club sport? Because then the other piece that we have to also think through as well is we're severely underserved. We have one single school team. Now, it's a real challenge getting into single schools, but single school teams will not allow you to have a season of that length. That's just not how their school calendars work. So we have to create a balance to where we can start getting those teams to fit into that metric too. So it's a balancing act that we've got to build out. And there's a lot of different pieces, I think, in this off season that we're going to spend a lot of time working on. The other piece that's severely underserved, if you want to talk about underserved, is girls high school rugby. That's completely a dead spot for us. And I think it comes down to a lot of attitudes related to the high school programs and some of the other programs not wanting to, push girls into sport. So I think that's a big problem that we've got to deal with, one. And then two, we don't have enough youth girls playing rugby. So we've got to have a pipeline going through. And that's the whole process I think we've got to get through. Is I think one of the great things that particularly the clubs in South Florida do is they have a really strong youth programs. And I think the Tampa, St. Pete, Sarasota are really starting to drive that home now, trying to get that going. And I think the more we can get those, the more sustainable these programs can come, the bigger we can come, and the more rugby we can have these kids going. But if we're just trying to get a season happening, I think shorter the better often is the best answer in the short term.
And what about having like in the fall some kind of tournament with the teams that are willing to? Some of them, they start earlier practicing.
I think last year, obviously, we couldn't do that. But I think in the previous 3 years prior to that, we have tried high school sevens, we have tried high school tens all in the fall, and we always get one, maybe two teams interested, and so you can't run a tournament like that. I think these are great ideas. What happens is these clubs are run by 1 or 2 individuals, and they're very, very busy, and they don't have the time. They're burned out, and they're trying to focus on just holding together their seasons where they're at. And that's where it's really important you have more people involved in what you're doing. And I think often the coaches get burnt out, everybody gets burnt out, so it's really difficult to have that going. Plus, you know, we're pretty lucky here in Florida. We do get to pull a lot of football kids, so that we don't want a conflict in that. But there are tons of kids who don't play football that we could be providing opportunities for, and we always will try to do stuff in the fall. It's just never been successful. We've never been able to actively get the teams. We put it on, we've booked facilities, we've booked everything, and then we've had to cancel it because they don't have enough teams willing to play.
Yeah, I'd like to see. I think it's been mentioned about the sevens really getting going with the high school side of things. We've got a good tournament circuit, and you're getting. It seems that we've always tried. In my tournament, we've always loved to have high school teams, but it's always sort of been very sporadic. 4 teams, max. There's on an every other year basis, but I think football doesn't really. I know it does get going to a certain extent in the summer, but I think it'd be nice to see. We've only got 4 tournaments.
I agree with you, Ross. I think your tournament is actually the sweet spot for the end of the high school season. I think you're in a great spot. You have the facility to be able to handle that. I think once we get into mid to late June, I think that's the kids and the parents just disappear, and it's just a challenge.
Yeah, the holidays, yeah.
So the goal right now, we're in talks with the rest of the high school teams, is to try to pull off 3 sevens tournaments in May, and then there is a group who's trying to run a sevens camp with Perry Baker and
nice,
and Cecil Africa, and they're trying to pull that off in Cocoa Beach area, awesome. In Merritt Island. So they're still trying to get the details of that together. So I think this year could be a nice little year to get sevens going. It just seems to be the appetite. Now, mind you, we still got 4 weeks of play still to go, but it seems to be an appetite for people wanting to continue to play. So I definitely want to see if we can try to pull that off. And I think if we could roll some girls stuff into that, I think that'd be fantastic. And we could really just build that sevens model. And maybe this becomes the thing that, like what Charlie's saying, is that they can keep playing through May. I know sevens is not everybody's cup of tea, but it definitely is a lot easier on people. You just need 10 players really just to pull it off, and you can make a good team.
Well, what it seems to me for sevens and the high school kids is the clubs, they just don't plan to have this season. It just seems to me that they, as you said, they show up in Ross's tournament because it's the first one we typically have for a 4-team group, and then they just disappear because they have not planned for, because they totally could,
Yeah, and I think there's a component there of, like you said, they have to. This is something that was fun. We really enjoyed playing those 3 tournaments, in a row, or 3 tournaments that we played or 4 tournaments, however it is. It doesn't matter to me. And once they get that going, the groundswell going, that was really good and that was really enjoyable. That's good, So it just has to take time. It's just unfortunate that these are great ideas that I get really nervous in COVID trying to hold all these things together. So that's the only thing that concerns me. Is I think we're on the right trajectory, and which is why the state championship events are going to be really good. It's just we're heading in the right. We've got to make sure that we're still on that right path with things.
As Charlie's showing you there, the 2021 playoffs start this weekend with the playing game that the NCAA tournament has, with Gibbons hosting Cape Pirates, which I'll be refereeing on the turf. They're playing that at 4 p.m. on Saturday at Cardinal Gibbons, if anybody wants to go down that. The winner of that will play Okapi, which should be, assuming Cardinal Gibbons wins that. I know Cape have struggled a little bit this season. If Gibbons win that game, Gibbons, Okapi, and Boca, sort of the 3 hottest teams, and Naples obviously as well. I think 5 or 6 teams could win this thing. And as Charlie has mentioned before in a previous episode, U19s is probably the most interesting tournament, the competition out there this season, because any of 5 or 6 teams could win. I mean, D2, maybe there's 3 teams. D3 is really going to be 2 teams in the final, we think. D4 is pretty wide open too, but I think the interest really this year is on U19s. It's great. All right, Evan, before you go, do we have an update yet on sort of the state championships on the 24th and what the deal with that is? I know we've seen things sort of thrown around via the rumor mill, but I didn't know if we had an update from you on that before you go.
Right. So, we definitely got one location locked in, which is Brevard and Cocoa, and that's mainly for the senior men's and women's games, I would imagine, depending upon what teams align into that. I'm almost at a point to getting the contract locked away for Carlin Park in Jupiter. because that gives us a neutral location. It's a great open field with nice posts, and we have a really good environment there. So we should be able to pull it all off there. I'm just waiting on Palm Beach County to give me the final yes that we're ready, that they're okay with us to do that. But we will be, for the U19s and the youth stuff, we will be in the kind of that Palm Beach County area at some component within that. So that's the goal of where we're heading, and that's what we've kind of discussed with the high school teams about.
And it's always going to be on the same day?
Yeah, it'll be on the same day. I think my concern, and I think this is particularly related to COVID, is, when we've had like 3,000 people to say championship events, when we put everything all in one place, and it's a great day, and it's my favorite event that we run. I think it's outstanding. I really, really enjoy it when we do the polo fields and we get everybody there. It's a great celebration in the community. I think the problem is, 3,000 people in one space just might be a little bit too much for us to try to manage in this environment right now. So that's really where it came from, particularly from the FRYU board. They were a little hesitant on that side of things. And from my perspective, when I think about the management of that's a big undertaking to try to take with COVID, championship checking everybody, making sure everything's sorted out. That's a lot of work. And I think if we can split it into two slightly smaller events, and we can really focus on it. I know it's tough on you, Charlie, but that seems to be the best way we can go for it.
The least of the worries. I'm just thinking that, and I actually like to have two separate events, because the senior people, the senior team.
I don't know. It's some of those high school parents, Charlie.
It's a different environment, and you have the kids separate. I like that, but what I really do not like is this thing, and I think it's gonna be really tough to organize for everybody at the same date. I mean, I'm just thinking, why not move one of them to the following week?
I think the other piece you missed,
referees. Many people want to be at both because they want to go and see their team, and they have kids playing, so they have to pick. I mean, you haven't got any pushback with this?
No, not so far. And I think the piece that I have with it too, like, let's just say Okapi makes U23, D4, and the U19 final, right? All three of those teams are going to play in Jupiter. That's the way that would work. You see what I'm saying? We would align based on, that's why we create two flexible locations within that. So as best we can, we'll try to align the teams as much as we can within their club colors and within what makes sense for geography. So I know that's difficult, but I definitely think this year is an unusual year, and I would prefer, and the FRU board prefers, and from the youth standpoint, we prefer. Obviously, that may change if all of a sudden we have a COVID shutdown in the semifinals and I have to bump a week out, then we'll have to change a date, you know what I mean? And we have to work out how to accommodate it. So I'm with you. I understand where you're coming from. It would be easier on me to logistically not have to try to manage two places at the same time. But I think it's also important that we try to get this done in April. We've pushed too far into May. It's already hot enough as it is right now. I don't think we need to go.
Not too far in May. It's not too far in May. It's a little bit in May, and it's going to be much
Charlie,
easier.
He's not going to I his mind because of you, Charlie.
I don't know.
And he's telling a good case, though. I'll give him that. He's being polite about it for once.
So the seniors, it's just going to be D2, D3, and the women.
So we don't know that.
Probably. You don't know.
It really
depends honestly, who's in it, Charlie, as he said.
It depends on who's in it. So we can't have someone like Tallahassee traveling to Jupiter to play, Orlando. Let's just say that's not what it's going to be. But that's my point. Here's a really better example. Let's say it's Tridents versus Naples in the final, right? The two, not 1 and 2 seeds. There's no point trying to push them all the way up to Brevard to play that game. We need to try to keep them in South Florida, and I think that's a smart move for them to do that if we can have that ability to do that. So that's really what it's based on.
Okay. All right, I'm going to have the final word here, Charlie. If Palm Beach played Brevard in the D3 final, I'm not the one that has to make that decision where that game is, Evan. That's all I'm saying.
It's already decided, that one. That's easy.
All right. Don't spoil the surprise. But listen, Good stuff, Evan. And we appreciate all the hard work you do, and appreciate you joining us this evening. Looking forward to a very exciting U19's playoff system, and we'll Charlie, we think 4. How many teams do you think can win this thing? You've seen video on most of these teams.
I think there's at least 4 teams, because what I think happens this year is you got the really physical teams, and the not so physical teams are very good. So it's just, I think it's going to come down to, the mental game and the strategy that they use when they play among each other.
100%. I think
anybody
as well.
We are 4 or 5 actually. We should start.
We won't discuss which 4 or 5 teams until we start predicting stuff next week. But I think the home teams are going to have a little bit of an advantage just because some of these teams play on narrower fields and play that narrow game. Other teams play on wider fields, and state championships, obviously, we're going to get to play. Hopefully, we'll see what the facilities are like. But I know in the past, when we got to those polo grounds and those, 110 by 60 or 65, and a lot of teams struggle with those 70, fields.
Ross, I always try to push them to 70.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and some teams that haven't played on fields that big all season, and it shows. But listen, that's why I'm trying to. It's a good way to get these teams off the turf and finding a grass field somewhere. But anyway, Evan, appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening.
Thank you guys for having me.
Good luck with everything the rest of the way.
We'll probably have you again.
Yeah,
absolutely. We'll definitely have one again before the end of the season. So we're looking at Jupiter/Brevard or Coco for the 24th, and we'll see how things play out over the next couple of weeks and who ends up playing where. All right, Charlie, let's move on to our game of the week. We're only going to have one game of the week this week, and it was between 2 undefeated teams coming into the game, and this is on the women's side of things. Tampa took on Orlando to decide who would be the 1 seed going into the semifinals. Obviously, home field advantage isn't going to be a deciding factor here because both semifinals are going to be at a neutral venue, obviously, as well as the final. But it was certainly some bragging rights here in deciding if you liked your semifinal matchup or not. And there's your quarterfinal. Oh, Charlie, go back to that. Go back to that graphic. It's the semifinals on 410, not the quarterfinals, Charlie. We'll have to remember that for we effed up last week.
As you may understand, I use templates and I copy them over. So this one I screwed up.
I like to cut you some slack because you put the work in. But Orlando against Fort Miami will be the 1 semifinal, and Tampa Jacks will be the other semifinal. Location TBD.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Somewhere in the middle of the state on the East Coast is what I've heard. Brevard, Coco, Vero, somewhere up in that vicinity. But anyway, we have the folks from the Tampa Crew Women joining us this evening, so let's bring them all in. It's quite a crew.
Yep.
You like that pun, Charlie? It's quite a crew. None of them are pirates. None of them are pirates that I know of. Although James Walcom Clark has the name of a pirate, or an Oxford University rugby player, or Cambridge, one of the two. Welcome to James Walcom Clark, the coach of Tampa Women. Jesse Promet, the crew club president. Also, you're still playing, Jesse, right?
Not currently, but yes, still playing.
Oh, not at the moment. Okay. And then Sam Black-Heels, the captain of Tampa. Charlie, do we have some video from this game? I know we have some video, do we not? I think
we do. They actually made an effort.
It's not Charlie Velasquez quality video, but it's video nonetheless. So we appreciate anybody sending any kind of video or photo. Again, the northern half of the state, we don't always get. Haley Slaughter. There's a Haley Slaughter sighting, Charlie.
Oh, yeah.
I think this may have been her 2nd game back. She was a little nervous about COVID to start the season, but we're glad to have one of our best referees, not just one of our best female referees, one of our best referees in the state back in the middle of the pitch. And we have Orlando here in navy and Tampa in black or red and primarily black. We did invite Raul, the coach of Orlando, to join us this evening. I'm not sure why he hasn't yet. Was he in the green room, Charlie? No, not yet.
No, not yet.
And I forgot we were going to get to John Steiner. We'll get to John Steiner after this, Charlie. John, yes. I know you're in the green room. I went out of order.
Oh, that's right.
So that's another I effed up. I know John's a very busy man, so we'll get to John after this. But there's Orlando drawing first blood here. James, talk about this game. You had a front row seat for it.
Very emotional. I'm not the quietest bloke on the sideline, so there was a lot going on, a lot of very, very hard hitting rugby from both sides. And when you're watching that kind of brutal rugby, it's always exciting. It's always you're on the sideline, not knowing really how you're supposed to feel. So, but it was there's a lot of effort put in this game. You can see both teams did not let up the entire 80 minutes. It was just constant, go, which is great to see.
Yeah, I watched the first half from Fort Miami against Orlando down here, and it was Orlando had the edge of the half, and they've got some big girls. And I assume, I don't know the answer to this, and Raul's not here to answer it, but I assume they have a number of UCF girls playing for them this year?
It looks like it. I think Jupiter knows more about that than I do.
Yeah, I think it's like at least 50-75% from
Wow, yeah, because I know Orlando, we've obviously got used to them and sort of Fort Miami as being the top 2 teams in the state over the last few years, but Orlando had sort of slipped back into the pack a little bit over the last couple of years, and then this year I think they've certainly benefited from the cancellation of the women's side of things. Did Tampa get any players from USF/Eckerd?
We got a couple who have joined us, I would say, within the last 3 weeks. We've had 4 or 5 ladies start coming to practice. We had rostered 1 player for this game who was an Eckerd player going forward. But no, it's been mostly, we've been really lucky with the local group come across from St. Pete and Tampa. We've averaged about 25 players at practice. So we're doing well just with the local players, to be honest.
Sam, how do you feel this game went? You're obviously a veteran rugby player, as the captain of this team. How do you feel this game went? I know it looks like it was a close game throughout here.
It definitely felt like a close game the entire time. There was no standstill. It was very aggressive, hard hitting. We played a little bit different, I think, because it was such a hard hitting game. We were overcompensating with some of our aggression as well, which got us into a little bit of trouble, got us a little bit off our game plan. But we have great film, and we've been looking at it, and we know exactly what we need to fix.
You don't need to tell us that, Sam, because I don't want to give any secrets away. But where do you think this game was decided?
Oh, that's tough. Because it kept a even tempo the entire game from kickoff. There was like just back and forth the entire time. And we did play better in the second half, I'd say, for sure. But it wasn't, I'll leave it at that.
Well, Jesse, Jesse, talk about your role. You're involved with the FRYU as well. So tell us a little bit about your role at the current time, as well as with Tampa.
Yeah, so right now I've chosen to opt out of the season with COVID, but I've been, on the sideline, not physically, but supporting the board any way I can and the team. And I know we put in a lot of work this season, and we actually have about 13 of our veteran players have opted out of this season, which includes myself. So this is definitely a good opportunity for some players that normally don't get to play to get some field time. And I definitely love that opportunity for them. And then I'm also on the FRYU board as the college director. And unfortunately, it's kind of not a big role right now because the college is not really being able to do anything right now. But hopefully that'll change very shortly. And for crew, we did not get any USF students, but we do have I would say a handful of Eckerd ladies that have come out to play with us, or at least practice 1 or 2.
Yeah, so I think Orlando, obviously, with a big benefit in that situation with the history of the UCF rugby team, and Raul, who says he's here, but I don't see him in the green room yet. Raul, I know, I think I sent you the right link. Charlie, send Raul another link in case I sent him the wrong one, but I'm pretty sure I did. But anyway, yeah, it seems like obviously UCF being the predominant college rugby team in Florida over the last decade, and perhaps even more. And obviously, Orlando has benefited from that. James, talk a bit about your viewpoint. You guys may well face each other again in the final. Obviously, Jacksonville, Fort Miami may have a say about that. But how far have you seen this team come over? Tampa has really come on the last couple of years and put themselves into the mix for the state championship.
I think I'd say I definitely benefited from joining after Tampa had gone through the first couple of years of growing pains. I think they put a lot of work to bring the team together and get the numbers up and, kind of really get 25, 30 odd players coming to practice. And then when I kind of joined on, I think they had a good bit of momentum. I think you guys came, second the season before I joined overall. And then last season we were top of the pack before the season got cancelled, and then now. So I think I benefited from being able to continue that momentum. We've got a lot of good players, a lot of dedication to the team, and then I've kind of just tried to basically take what they built and just build more and more on it. I can't take credit for all the work they've done ahead of time, and I really don't want to take credit for much of the display that they have out there. I think the team just performs, and they want to learn, and they want to keep growing, and I'm just happy to be able to help kind of direct that and maybe tweak them here and there. But I think a lot of the players really have a good eye for the game, and it's just trying to provide them the opportunity to play kind of more and more potentially high-level rugby, and introduce the team to more and more kind of high-level concepts of rugby, so we can put that on the field against these teams like Orlando who bring a lot to kind of test us and push our boundaries. So.
Now, give us a bit about James. I'm not familiar with you, so give us a bit about your sort of rugby background.
Well, obviously, I'm a funny talker as well. So, I mean, I started playing in the UK around 95, 96 as a lad. And then, obviously, 2006, I moved over here. Played D1 with UF for a couple of years. And then I played around Florida. I played with Jacksonville. I was actually with St. Augustine Rugby team when they were a team a good number of years back. Hopefully a couple of them are probably watching this right now. And then played with Jackson for a little bit. And then eventually actually coached Jacksonville Women's for a couple of years. And then moved out to Tampa. And then Tampa Crew graciously accepted me as the potential coach. Or as their coach now for the last 2 years. So yeah, I've been around for, like I said, probably around since 95, 96. I've really been playing full-on contact rugby. So
good stuff. And Sam, what does James bring to this Tampa squad? He's clearly brought this team on the last couple of years to again to compete for that state championship spot.
Well, when we brought James in, like you said, we were coming off second place the previous year, and we were ready to take us to the next level. And we wanted someone who'd bring a lot of structure to practice, because we had player coaches before James. So practice just became a whole different thing. It was very structured, very fast paced. Commitment went through the roof because he has a strict attendance policy. And because of that, the dedication and, the talent, everything just was on the up and up.
Good stuff. Raul has joined us. Raul, unmute yourself and say hello to the T-Fray community. I know we had you on back in the fall. Tell us about this game, Raul, on Saturday against Tampa. We can't hear you, Raul. Unmute yourself. You're muted, mate. Wait. Hit that space bar, or is that Zoom? I can't remember if Charlie, maybe get Raul, maybe help Raul if we can get him unmuted. But anyway, I'm really looking forward to the semifinals in this women's side of things. I know Jacksonville have showed themselves that they can compete.
There we go. How's that?
Raul, there we go. All right,
let's get
back to Raul. Raul, yeah, talk about this game Saturday. Tampa gave you a match.
I can't hear you.
Uh-oh. I'm having all sorts of trouble. Raise your hand when you can hear me, Raul. Anyway, the Fort Miami have been coming on. I reffed them on Saturday. They struggled a little bit in their first match, but they got a lot of new players, which I think every game they're going to get better and better. Jacksonville has shown they can compete. I'm looking, and a neutral venue is obviously not going to help the 1 or 2 seeds as much as it perhaps would have done if you were at home. Raul, can you hear me now?
I think I got it. How's that?
There you go. Raul can hear me. Raul, talk about this game Saturday. You guys have been, plowing through people, and then Tampa also had. This was going to be the marquee matchup and perhaps the final that we'll be seeing on the 24th. Again, Fort Miami and Jacks may have something to say about that. But talk about this game on Saturday and what you guys had to come up against in Tampa.
They played us really well. I was surprised they attacked us in the forwards. We were missing 7 backline players, so I had 2 number 8s starting in the back line.
Oh, wow.
So we sort of had to just keep it in the forwards, and hopefully they didn't get it wide and run around the corner on us, to be honest with you.
And talk about this season, Orlando and Fort Miami have been battling for the state title over the last few years, but you guys obviously you being more of a UCF guy, we're known as, you had some UCF injection to this team this year, and tell us about that and how that's really sort of taken that team to the next level.
We're really not allowed to use that word. I got the college girls.
Sorry, the university in and around Orlando.
Yes. We got the college girls to come play for me. We went and talked to the school, and we made a decision that we thought it'd be better to get them to play rugby rather than try to lose the club. So I got them out and started practicing, and Orlando was hurting for some numbers. We first talked about putting ourselves as our own team, and we started looking at it. That was too much to do, so we just went in and joined Orlando, and we've been getting like 30 girls to practice with Orlando and the college around Orlando, and that's where we're at.
Good stuff. I mean, talk about this season for you, Ra. I know we talked sort of back in the fall when we chatted to you on the episode back then. How's this season been for you, dealing with everything in COVID and actually combining the 2 squads?
Actually, we've been really lucky. A lot of the girls I'd coached before, because in the summers we always play 7s together, so it's sort of pretty copacetic. I have 11 girls graduating this year. So hopefully they'll go right on to play for Orlando and keep that club strong. And I got to go rebuild where I'm at the local university.
Awesome stuff. Well, everybody, appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. Listen, I think there's a good chance that you two might see each other in a few weeks on April 24th. But again, there's going to be the semifinals before that on the 10th. I'm glad you ladies, decided to sort of pick this schedule with a week off between most games. So you'll get a chance to heal up. And I know, Raul, as you said, you're missing a few players. I'm sure everybody was perhaps a little shorthanded as the season went on for various reasons. But hopefully everybody will be at full strength for the semis on the 10th and then the finals on the 24th. Charlie, you have anything to say before we say goodbye to these lovely folks?
I don't know if you want to make some bets on who's going to be at the final.
You and me, or Tampa versus Orlando?
I think Raul already owes me a beer, so.
Well, you owe me a beer, you rat bastard.
Oh, okay.
There's going to be plenty of beer. Don't worry.
Listen, again, hopefully we can have all these senior finals in the same place. Now, I just really hope we can get a good crowd out there on the 24th, wherever the games may be. I assume if it is Orlando, Tampa, it may be up in Brevard. We'll just have to see where things sort of play out after the semifinals. But this is a game, I think, this year that really deserves a good crowd. Two teams that I've seen, obviously Orlando in person. I've seen tape of Tampa, and we saw in the highlights there, and you guys talked about two teams ready to mix it up physically, which we don't always see at the women's side of things. But I'm looking forward to this postseason and four teams that, who knows, anybody could win that semifinal.
I think in the semifinals we're in Vero Beach, Ross.
Yeah, I've heard Vero and I've heard Brevard. They're close enough to each other that somewhere in the vicinity. So yeah, neutral venue makes things interesting for the semifinal. It's close enough for almost every little bit of a travel for Jackson and Fort Miami, but as the 3 and 4 seed, that's only right. So we look forward to the semifinals on the 10th. Ladies, James, Raul, thanks for joining us this evening, and we look forward to talking to you perhaps before the end of the playoffs again.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Very much.
Thanks, guys.
For the video also. Bye-bye.
Yes, always send us video. Everybody should be taping every game, Charlie, right?
Yes.
All right, let's quickly. John Steiner, I completely forgot about John Steiner. Bring John Steiner in.
Well, give him a minute to compose himself because he's been waiting there.
John's always ready. He's born ready.
He's
got one of the best backgrounds we always have on TFRO with his soccer history and his rugby history. There he is, John, the very busy man today. John, how's today gone?
That guy.
That's good. Thanks for having me. There we go.
How's today been? Field set up, I assume, and just getting everything ready for this week?
Man, have you seen the
I
field?
did. I sent Charlie some pictures, so we were.
I saw
out
the posts. Yeah, the posts looking good.
So obviously,
is that a fence between the fields, John?
Well, it's come down. That came down today. They've had Major League Soccer teams training out there.
That's right.
So they had them split up. So that fence is down, and they've essentially divided the 8 pitches that you'll remember into 4, and the Tropical Sevens will have 4 of them. It's been a rough year for the hotel, and MLS got pushed back 2 weeks, so their spring training got pushed back, and then we overlapped a little bit. So we agreed that we would only take half the park this year. And you made the comment earlier how we're going to squeeze all the matches that we have. We're totally maxed out. I don't think we could accept any more teams. So yeah, we're going to run 4 pitches. You can see the picture there. The fields are in immaculate condition. Those soccer lines will fade over the week, and then the rugby posts are in, and we'll start decorating as of tomorrow. Teams are actually on site as of tomorrow. We'll probably have a couple teams from Hawaii out checking out the turf, and Wednesday we have pretty decent day of team training, and then Thursday it's totally booked. We'll have completely filled all 4 fields with team training because everybody will really be on site. There's some of the kiddos not helping us yesterday. That was cool.
That's right. Put the kids to work, John. Free labor. I love it.
That's right. We had the Tropical Rugby goalpost installation group. We actually came up with a very clever way to do the goalposts, and they actually ended up looking and working out really, really well. And by the way, those goalposts are for use by anybody in Florida if they want. If they ever want to set up a rugby pitch, we are happy.
Pay attention, Ross. Pay attention.
My piddly little crappy sevens tournament which happens June 5th, 7th. We have existing posts, Charlie, so I know they're not as nice as John's, but
that's the only reason you have posts, because they're already existing.
Listen, Charlie always gives me grief because one year we didn't have posts when we were playing on a turf field and we had to have scoring zones, which I absolutely loved. And I noticed, Charlie, the MLR, the exceptional MLR decided to sort of take in scoring zones this year by giving 7 points for any try behind the post. Of course, that didn't work out too well because the first 2 weeks have been really windy and people have been missing penalties from around the post. But let's get back to Tropical Sevens. John, I was looking at the schedule today. Give us sort of a brief overview of sort of how each division is looking and what you're most excited about seeing this week. I know USA Rugby is going to have a presence there with a sort of opportunity day / combine for the U18s, U16s, which is really exciting for anybody that wants to get looked at the next level. So, John, give us sort of an overview of everything as you stand here on a Monday evening.
Well, it's been probably 2 months since I last chatted with you, you guys.
Been a while.
And since then, we decided to move forward with the event. We opened up registration in January and said, let's just offer the platform for teams to have an experience and see what happens. And then the rugby community responded. We're not going to get any international teams this year because the teams just simply can't travel.
Right.
But all American teams, we have 4 from Florida. The rest are coming from pretty much every part except maybe the Northeast, which really hasn't returned to rugby. But a lot of excited people out there too, excited about coming to play because it's really the first thing that's happened in the U.S. For a major event like this. So this has been good and made us feel good. And again, a lot of excited people. So we have, in running through the divisions, a very healthy U18 boys division of 16 teams. We combined U18 and U16 girls, and we combined U14 and U16 girls because we didn't get a lot of traction there. But we're going to do something fun for the girls that want to participate at that level. We have a really good U18 girls division of 12, 13 teams, and some really good teams, and it'll be a very, very healthy competition at U18 girls. U23 men, another good one. We're seeing quite a few college players that can't come as their school, but they're coming as clubs.
Right.
And that's pretty cool. And then we'll have a good U23 women's division as well. You mentioned earlier Life coming with a couple teams. We've got Clemson, Ronnie, Trevor is bringing a team from South Florida, Tallahassee.
Trevor, we're gonna have a Trevor sighting. Charlie, we haven't seen Trevor near a rugby field in forever, so that's awesome to see.
And Ronnie's bringing a team on the under 23 men's side, so that'll be cool. And then we have an under 14 boys division, which has 6 teams in it, and that will also be really good too. And I should say one other cool thing that did happen was we had a great response from the folks in Tampa, from Joe, and he is bringing his under 12s and under 10s because he's made some traction at that level, and we're offering them some field space on both days to give them a run around and do some fun things with them and give them a taste of what it's like to be, on the nice pitches with, the quote unquote big boys running around. So they're quite excited about that. And we've never had Tampa play in the Tropical Sevens before, so we're happy to have them involved this year. So things are looking good. It's event week, so I'm pretty stressed this week.
I can imagine you're a busy man. Now, games start when on Friday?
First thing in the morning, so roughly 9-ish. We'll go probably 9 to 6 on Friday, and then a little earlier on Saturday to get everybody out of there by no later than 5. So that's a packed schedule. But then, obviously, so I mentioned Thursday is a big training day, but also we're having the athlete combine that we do every year for the Thursday afternoon. Our partners and friends at USA Weightlifting do all the testing and all the metrics. And then we'll have about 4 or 5 scouts from USA Rugby. Brendan Keene and some of his team will be out there really interested in looking at players, getting them into their database, into their system. They haven't had a lot of opportunities to see players. So this is a key point on their calendar to assess and evaluate players. And obviously the players are quite keen on doing that and getting seen as well. And the other kind of little caveat is quite a few colleges are coming just to scout. So we've had schools saying,
smart folk, John.
They said we can't bring our own teams this year, but we're coming with coaches and we want to look, and they're asking for rosters and team coaching contact. So yeah, as the only game in town, it's getting a lot of attention, it seems. So that's cool.
Oh, great stuff. As Ronnie said, the best tournament in the US. Ronnie, good luck going to Vegas or LA next time they're back there. But yeah, no, this is the fact that John's managed to keep this thing going, during the pandemic is amazing. What's been the biggest challenge, John, since we last talked to you with this tournament? Obviously, you knew that there wasn't going to be any international teams going, but you've had a good flow of teams coming in. But what's been from domestically? But what's been your biggest challenge since we last spoke to you 2 months ago?
Well, it's been everything's last minute. That's the biggest challenge, is trying to prepare for something that you don't really know what's going to happen. COVID has obviously wreaked havoc on participation from teams, even some of our own policy. We're fortunate that we live in Florida and it's pretty low restrictions, so we don't have a lot of things that are hindering us. So if the teams are coming from a place that they've returned to play and they're off and running and they're looking for competition, then it suits everybody perfectly. Like I said, in the Northeast, they're just not coming. We won't get, Atlantis, for example, this year.
Right.
ERA's not coming, but we're getting a lot of response out of Texas. The Guerrilla Rugby guys have been wonderful. USA South, Mark Williams, Richard Boone, those guys are bringing bunches. They're going to bring like teams, 16 teams in total, and a bunch of Florida kids are playing under the banner of USA South. They're doing a lot of good things for rugby. So it's just been the last minute. It's been challenging with the hotel because they want more assurance of what it's going to be, and it was just hard to offer that. We just announced opening in January, and here we are at the end of March, and we've got 60 teams coming, which in the end is huge. And we can't actually get any bigger because we don't have the space. But
right. So Omni Champions Gate starting this Friday morning. If you're in the area or within a couple hours or so, I want to get up and see some great sevens rugby. I know it's the middle of the 15 season, but listen, anybody that can play 15s can go out and play sevens. And obviously, there's no spots left for teams, but go out and watch and see some of the best talent that not just Florida, but the entire country has to provide. Ronnie, as you're on here, give us your who are you bringing up for Stormers?
A couple of guys from. I mean, it's mostly made up of the guys that have been playing on their Stormers men's side, and then a couple of college guys thrown in there. We got a couple of new guys that are just coming into the fold and joining the Stormers crew. So we're just taking that crew up there. It's everyone from Florida and one kid from Florida who is currently based up in Georgia.
Okay, as long as they don't see Cagney Coburn on that field on Friday morning.
No way.
There's no way that man can pass anything under 23.
I listed him as a coach. This time. He's
John, don't let him sneak on. There he is. Don't let that man sneak onto the field, John. You just saw a picture of him. He only lasts 2 minutes anyway. Don't let that fat bald man get onto that field at Champions Gate this weekend.
He gets tired bringing out water, man.
Well, John, listen, appreciate you joining us. I know you're a busy man.
Just a quick point, it's people like Ronnie that we have really been great ambassadors for this event, and he's been there since year one and helped us grow it, and always has said positive things. So we love to work with Ronnie every year. He's a huge supporter, and it's just a great partnership. And I feel like he's part of the family, and he's helped grow it to where it's become. So thank you, Ronnie. See you in a few days.
Let me ask you quickly, John. I know that your tournament typically falls like at the end or just before the end of the regular season here, but do you expect more participation from Florida teams, or that is something that is sort of a given that it's hard for Florida teams to show up because they're in the middle of the at the end of the season?
Well, typically the Easter, it's always on Easter weekend. So typically it's an off weekend for teams. And it was different this year because I know Evan had to schedule as many games as he could in many weekends. So it's a play date in Florida. So we know we're not going to get the Florida teams this year, but I'm hoping that the Tropical Sevens is a bit of a source of pride for Florida. I've always felt a strong connection to the teams here in Florida. They're always welcome to come participate. I'm always open arms for them. But obviously we promote ourselves as an international event. And we often get a lot of international teams. Usually more than 50% of our teams are out of the country. And that's really makes a unique environment, and we will get a lot more next year as well. So we always love the Florida teams. We love our Florida partnerships. We're always open to them. But I think one of the coolest things is that we get the world to come to Florida, and that really creates a unique competition. And that's not just players and teams, but also the referees. Roy Monk he's our referee manager and always does an amazing job with the referees. But we get international refs coming just to come and participate in Tropical Sevens as well. So it's really a very nice, overall cultural exchange, and that's really always been the vision of Tropical Sevens. And I think we've been able to get there thanks to people like Ronnie and others that have and Charlie and everybody that's been able to support it.
Okay, last question then. Why don't you do it twice a year, man? I mean, the weather.
Charlie, he's got to have a life, Charlie.
We have I mean, really, we have the weather. You could do it twice a year.
Maybe we'll do a 15s event or something.
If not, I'm gonna do it. Okay?
Charlie loves 10s. Charlie loves 10s.
Hey, let's just put it this way: there's more to come from our end. So we're excited about the future.
Next 2022, this thing is going to be a beast. Everybody's going to be starving for sevens rugby. I know not everybody can play this year, but next year this thing's going to be a monster. I hope you're prepared, John.
We'll have a seniors division too.
There you go, seniors, so Charlie can play.
What do you mean?
Hey, one more, maybe minor story to tell you about one of the kind of cool things that we've seen over the years is you guys probably know of a young woman named Alex Wantlin.
Yes, we've had her on the show.
A very good player who's participated in the Tropical Sevens every year. So she came out with the crew from the Ruckus Fort Lauderdale teams, the beginning of the year, the first year. She migrated onto the Atlantis teams. She scored the game winner to win Atlantis title in 2019, and we captured that on video and highlighted it. That helped her promote herself, and she got recruited to play with Roz at Life.
Yep.
Life has been there almost every year, and now she's coming back again for her 4th straight year as a participant with Life, and she's just doing amazing, and we're really, really proud of her, and she's definitely one of our shining stars of tomorrow. She's got a really bright future ahead of her in women's rugby, and her dad Bert will be out helping this weekend.
He's a good guy.
So, great people.
So she's getting some kind of prize, I guess, like the most attendance.
I'm just disappointed that Lindenwood's not coming this year. I texted.
Well, Lindenwood couldn't play out of conference, so they said they just couldn't. They weren't allowed. So they'll be back next year. Billy said so.
Because they're destroying everybody this year. I'd like to see them on the sevens field. But John, listen, I know you're a busy man. You probably got to go put some posts up now, or some flags, or do something right now. Go say hi to somebody.
We'll have lots of swag on sale because everybody seems to want. People end up ripping off the signs and all sorts of branding. So
that shows you're doing too good of a job, John. And listen, the website, I remember when Tropical Sevens first started, I didn't know what was going on. And I went to this website. I said, oh, these guys mean business. This website is serious. And it's still it's an amazing website with all the information you could ever need on Tropical Sevens. So Tropical7s.
Oh, quickly, what is the situation with the video? Are you guys going to stream something?
Oh, Charlie wants a job.
No, not really, but
Charlie, I need your help. I need your help, buddy.
Oh,
we're not we weren't able to do the streaming together. Flow Rugby's just not back in where they're at. But next year, all matches will be live streamed. So,
okay, of course,
good stuff. Hey, Charlie, get the contract in the mail to John right now. Get him to sign that thing before he changes his mind.
I got it ready.
Well, John, listen, best of luck this week. I know it's a labor of love, and it's going to be a crazy week for you. Not as crazy perhaps as it could have been in this year, but I think you got your hands full on Friday and Saturday for sure. I know, as well as this week with teams coming in to do their camp, and the combine is going to be fun as well. So if you're interested in going, even if you're not playing for a team in Tropical Sevens, you can get, especially if you're a teenager who wants to get looked at, you can get up there for the combine on Thursday if you can. I'm sure your teachers will let you get a day off school. But yeah, tropical7s.com has all the information. So John, again, appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening. Good luck this week.
Thank you, John.
Perhaps we'll have you on next week and get a good review of everything that went on.
Yeah, great. Looking forward to seeing everybody. Okay. Thanks, guys. See you soon, Ronnie.
John, I'll see you Wednesday.
Yeah, Ronnie, stay with it. Ronnie's going to stay with us. If you'd like to join, I know it's been a quieter day viewer-wise, Charlie. I think because the high school games are so limited this week. But if you want to join us, rugbyfl.com/join. Jump in just like Raul did, and come and say hi. Unmute your mic. Make sure you can hear us, unlike Raul. But we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He's not young.
Yeah, everybody's late today. Even who's late? This young lady.
Look at that shirt.
Valentina. Look at her.
Man, how did she get a Japan shirt?
Oh, I don't know.
I want one of those. There was free shipping on Japan jerseys somewhere this week.
Hey, Valentina.
World Rugby Shop or something. Look at Valentina.
Well,
I have to disappoint her, Charlie. CB texted me. CB is not showing up this evening.
I know. Well, I actually told him just to try on the phone on the road and just say hi. So that's Valentina.
That's all right.
You should see her brother's wardrobe. He has pretty much just rugby shirts. So
I saw her brother's mustache this past week, and that thing is scandalous. I'm sure Ronnie's seen it as well. That thing. I mean, this is Tomas we're talking about here, not
quality mustache.
I told him he had to stay away from all schools with that thing. As the wife says, maybe we won't take 2 hours tonight without CB. I'm sure he'd love to talk about every try that was scored by his team against Sarasota this weekend, 90, whatever it was. I almost asked him why he didn't stop scoring, but all right, it's 8:20, Charlie. Let's get on with things here.
Why don't we just go through the games we have?
Let's go. Fire them up, Charlie. Fire up the highlights, as they say.
And
I'm ready.
So we're going to start with.
We're going to start with SoFlo, Colorado. Okay. No, we're not. We're going to start with Boca.
I have this one right here. So
this is Boca against. This is Sarasota, the beautiful cricket club there, as you can see.
Oh my God!
Grass and the white picket fence. Yeah. That's how you know it's Sarasota. Listen, Boca started the season getting hammered by Key Biscayne, and we'd heard things, how good Boca was going to be this season, and they opened the season with that disappointing loss down there in the Keys, and we were like, uh-oh, what's going on? They haven't lost since, Charlie, and this game was rather one-sided, as we can see. Is that Alfredo Lopez in the background refereeing this game? I think it is.
Yes, I think it is.
Boca got some athletes. Oh, Jesus, that boy! Listen, low center of gravity. Ronnie, you should be looking at, taking any of these boys to Tropical Sevens, but there's some boys on this Boca team you should be looking at. And Matt Core wants to let John let him play this week. Charlie, the highlights have stopped.
Oh,
what's going on here?
These are actually there's some short highlights.
This game was a lot to 7. Boca running into the playoffs. They'll play Key Biscayne. Right, the team that they lost to in that first week of the season.
Key Biscayne, yes.
They'll get the rematch in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, which
should be one of the more interesting quarterfinals out there. I think I'm refereeing that one, Charlie. Perhaps.
Well, you should. You're the boss.
What's next? So Boca U19 is looking good.
Let's look at this SoFlo against the Colorado.
All right. So for those that don't, I think we mentioned it last week. So SoFlo, one of the newest teams in the state of Florida, hosted the Colorado XOs, who are a crossover team featuring athletes from other sports, and they include Odell Beckham's cousin, Teron Beckham. Most of the guys played football in college. One of the guys was even a USA bobsled member. Glenn Robinson's son, who also went to Purdue, he played football, wrestled, track. He's on this team as well. So they came down here. They played New Orleans RFC previously this season. That's the Colorado XOs in white, obviously SoFlo in pink. So Colorado XOs, the connection with these two sides, maybe Ronnie can fill us in on the connection. I can't remember the guy's name.
Malik Bryant.
Malik Bryant.
Yeah, he's a former FIU player. He went with us to nationals in 2018.
So Malik got involved with this Colorado team and managed to get them to come and play SoFlo. As you can see, some big boys on this Colorado team. But they've only been playing rugby together. They've only been playing rugby, most of these guys, for 6 weeks. Or even a couple of months. They've been training with some serious coaching staff. I was impressed in this play, Charlie. The ball hit the crossbar. And give credit to the second row for Colorado there, knowing what to do when the hooker for Colorado, knowing what to do when the ball hits the crossbar, which most new rugby players wouldn't know what to do. SoFlo thought they were going to get an easy try there, but didn't. This team has got some serious athletes, as you would expect from a team packed with former D1 college football players. And listen, SoFlo hung around.
Oh yeah, they hang in into the last minute. I'll give them that. You know, they didn't have a chance, of course, but they did not give up, and they actually had to have some like the front row was from the Colorado guys. This was a game that was a little bit. We didn't even know if it was going to happen.
We did a couple of weeks before. They told me it wasn't happening, and then 20 minutes later it was, and they found 15 guys, and they got out there and stuck it to a bunch of guys that played D1 college. This number 9, this little scrum house got some wheels on him.
Yeah,
this is stacked with guys from all over the country that have played, again, full D1 athletes. So they've got the athletic background. They're just using this as sort of an experiment, see if they can turn these guys into rugby players.
Which is a question that it got me thinking that, and that's why I also wanted to have Ronnie, that rugby seems to be a sport that is really hard to learn right away. With you always have some exception of those athletes that can learn something, but rugby really needs some time, Ronnie, right?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part it does. I think when you get to trying to learn the technical parts of the game and having a real understanding and growing a rugby IQ, I think it takes multiple years. I think it takes multiple years. I don't think it's something that you can learn in a short period of time. But I don't really know how much time this team is spending together, and that could be a huge, a huge piece of that. If these guys are at a camp for even if it's a week, if you take if you take a week and you take a team together for a week and for those 8-hour days, you're in a rugby environment, you're gonna learn a lot than you would as if you were practicing just on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I don't know what these guys are doing, but that could be a a big piece of this.
It was a weird game, it was just like a weird game and I think it is because you see these guys, these athletes, and they were very, very well organized as a team. They traveled with 30 guys, I think. But then when you saw them play, it just looked weird. Well, I mean, obviously they've been just playing for a couple of. You see some weird stuff going on, and that made me thought that you really need to. Any other team with some experience would have, I would say that Miami Tridents would have beaten this team. What do you think, Ross? You muted yourself.
Yeah, Ross, you're muted.
Yeah, no, I think Tridents would give them a good game. I'm not sure whether they would beat them. Especially in the middle of a season like this, I doubt they put out their top side. But if you go to infinitypark@glendale.com/Colorado-XO, the letter O, you can read up about the Colorado XOs, and they have a podcast. And Charlie, you mentioned they got a pretty serious video presence up in there, as you can see on some of the clips, and they're really trying to get this going. I assume they're practicing 2 or 3 times a week out there in Glendale.
Yeah,
and they're doing it. They had a full documentary about the team. As you can see, there's still some raw talent, right? Some of the passing, but you've got the sidestepping and just the physical ability. It's an interesting experiment. There's no doubt about it.
It is. Let me play here because they took the trouble to send it a little interview to the captain of
I've been having this conversation for years. If we put our best athletes, game of rugby ball, how would it look? How would we play? And this is a big step in that direction. To have this many stud athletes. I mean, player for player, everybody here is filled out, strong, fast, physical. It was good for us to test ourselves with that kind of energy, those kind of players. So we learned what playing fast can actually do for your team. A lot of times, teams at our level, we play fast, but it's rushed. It's not really the right procedures going into protecting the ball, 9 getting out of the ruck, playing fast, playing straightforward. And to see a team attack us that way, it's very beneficial because we can say, you see how they got that half break, how he was able to make that offload, attack straight, physical, and we weren't set the way we needed to because of how fast they playing. So this film, breaking down this film is going to be a treat,
Look at that seating in the original series. Look who's joining us, Charlie.
And here's the man himself. Let me unmute him.
You got to unmute himself.
Yeah, he has to do it.
Lance Kavanaugh.
You have to unmute yourself.
With quite the podcast setup here. He's got the windscreen and the microphone. Yeah, look at Lance go. It seems like he does this for a living or something. Lance, welcome to T-Fro.
Hi, man. How y'all doing today?
I'm good. Talk to us about this game. You were obviously there and played, and how much fun was it to play against some of these serious athletes?
Listen, it was probably the most fun I had playing rugby in maybe top 3 games of my life. I mean, athletically, these guys were crazy, right? It's hard enough.
Yes,
it's hard enough. Yeah, like everybody's full, everybody's 3D, muscles on muscles, right? You can see their inexperience in places, but as far as the actual game went, it reminded me of a throwback of my early days, right? When it was guys really just leaning on their athleticism, little bits of the rugby knowledge, the rugby parts of it. But as far as the actual game, man, listen, everybody on my team enjoyed themselves. It wasn't one person who didn't have fun. I mean, the score says one thing, but it was a very highly competitive, high tension, every meter earned kind of game. I love playing in those. So,
what did you learn from that game, Lance? I know the score was one-sided, but what did you really learn from where you guys need to improve? I know obviously just that general athleticism that team had you guys beat, but you guys have played more rugby than they had. But tell us what you really learned from this game.
Man, I mean, that's not necessarily true, right? There is multiple guys on our team, who this is their first year. It was one guy that was his first game playing. He started, and that was his very first game. So imagine baptism by fire, right? The things that I feel that we learned, one thing is that you don't really get away with anything when you play a good team. You pay for every mistake. Yep. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can count on my hand 3-4 of their tries were just simple. We just need to learn as we go rugby, right? Not getting low on the goal line when they charging us down, right? Knock-ons that land magically into their guy hand, and it's their fastest dude on their team, and he scores. 8-man picks where we get stripped. It was just anything that can go wrong did go wrong, kind of. It was one of those things. But I'm proud of the fight. It was a lot of guys there on our team that down 50, down 60, all right, we're still here. They're going to have to earn this next 5. They're going to have to earn this next. So I'm proud of my boys.
No, it's great to see Charlie was there in attendance. Charlie,
that is true, and they fought until the very end. I mean, to the last second. Absolutely.
And listen, that's all about character.
I would like to dispel a rumor, though. There is no way the Trident's beating this team. No offense to the Tridents. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to be mean. There is no way the Tridents are just
that is not a rumor. I said it.
Listen, I want you to stand by your words, but I'm going to stand by these. That was a really good team.
So, listen, they beat New Orleans RFC. They beat Belmont Shore. One of the best teams on the West Coast, amateur sides on the West Coast, before they beat you guys. Lance, give us sort of an update on where Slow Flow stands. I know we talked to Ryan previously on the show. We heard him on those Rugby League podcast he was on. I know you guys stopped looking at getting into Rugby League this summer. But what has playing Rugby Union meant to you guys this season? I know you guys have struggled here and there to get fields, etc., and with the numbers. But give us an update on where SoFlo RFC stands at the moment.
Well, that's the vast majority of our problem, right? Like, recruiting is hard enough if you don't have a field, right? It's hard to really get games at home or a place that you can have people go that's yours. Obviously, this COVID culture is another thing, right? I personally feel like we're on the doorsteps of something that could be special. We seem to get a lot of good attention. We seem to get a lot of it's a lot of teams that just enjoy playing us. They enjoy the atmosphere we bring. Every time we travel somewhere or go somewhere, people enjoy what we bring to the table. Time is going to be our issue, right? We're going to, y'all just saw, we're going to have to take some beatings. That's part of the growth. That's part of learning. That's part of getting to the next steps. But listen, Ryan has a vision, and we got some guys behind us that believe in it. I believe in it. We just got to work out some things. The culture has to build, has to be created, but one step at a time,
Yeah, it does take time. Talk about the Rugby League coming up this summer. I don't think everybody's most people that watch this show may know a little bit about the rugby league side of things, but talk to us about the Florida Rugby League and how that's grown over the last few years.
I know for sure the South. I know it's East Coast teams, right? So up to New York, Delaware, right?
Yeah.
White Plains, places like that. But Florida has 5-6 rugby league teams. For some reason, it just takes a hold in Florida. It's an Atlanta team that's been a staple, but the reason they're good is because they get a lot of union guys. So they get guys with skills, and they get guys that's been playing for a while. Then they switch codes, and it don't take much to really figure it out from there. I think as far as SoFlo and Florida is concerned, we become better rugby players, get the skills down, be able to make every pass that we can. Then I think that we'll be fine. And I think that even though it'll be our first year league and it's going to be some growing pains, it's just going to be growing pains all around. Time is a thing, but
yeah, of course,
I feel like we got a shot with anything. If SoFlo is on the field, I feel like we got a shot. We were just down 60 points. And I felt the comeback coming. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the attitude, right? That's just the attitude. Like, we just gonna keep, keeping.
Yeah, listen, I remember you guys showing up a couple of summers ago to play sevens. I was like, who are these guys? And then as soon as you get on the field, you're like, oh man, these guys really want to learn the game. You got amazing athleticism, and I'm glad you guys are pursuing both the league and the union side of things, because that's not easy. But league, listen, we've seen Jacksonville, the success that the Axemen have had up there. Hopefully you can get some of these rugby union boys down here to sort of convert perhaps to league. Just don't ask me to referee it, Lance.
I won't. I won't ask you. Ryan probably will. He should.
I played one game of rugby league in my life, and that was for the Philadelphia team against Axemen, who my brother was playing for, and they were short of numbers. And he said, come up and play a game of rugby league. I said, all right, I'll give it a shot. And then after that game, I was like, man, it's a different world. Never again. So I give you guys all the credit in the world for trying that sport, because it's not for the faint of heart.
These are some brave boys. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that. They showed up last Friday.
No fear.
Yep.
Hey Ronnie, how you doing, man? You looking young and spry, man. It's good to see you, bro.
with that beard, he looks like
old,
me.
Man. I feel old. I may look young, but I feel old.
He looks like
Charlie
my uncle.
with the gray hair, and Charlie with the gray hair, and Ronnie and I with the gray beards. Million's got no gray hair, thankfully. But yeah, Charlie. I mean, before Ronnie, talk about SoFlo and what these guys have been doing. And you're obviously on the seven side of things, and they started going a couple of years ago. And I know you've been keeping a close eye on things going on with them.
Yeah, SoFlo they mean a lot to us as a group. I mean, Ryan has been a big part of Florida HPP sevens, and he'd always been around, and he's always leaned on me, and I've leaned on him, and now that SoFlo came in, I mean, it's always been from the beginning where we were starting with Stormers and SoFlo was starting. It was always about us growing together. So we're trying to make parts of the game or areas in the game that a lot of people don't look at. So with SoFlo, looking at that inner city group, that the group that doesn't get to look at rugby front on, just like I'm a huge proponent of the sevens game, where I feel that teams should focus more on a game where it's a lot easier to get an athlete to be looked at the highest levels of the game more than it would in 15. And Ryan and the boys from SoFlo have an understanding of that, and they mean everything to us. Like, for us, it's a great competition, and it's a brotherhood that I couldn't ask for a better group of guys to be doing it with.
Hey, Ronnie, you want to eliminate 15s and just 2 7s?
No, I don't. Not at all. But I think that like, for example, if you look at England, right, like, or actually look at the United Kingdom, like, they put a lot of focus into having clubs that are just sevens clubs, and those clubs are massive parts of what gets a lot of those players to play for England. And I think that's the same thing where in these countries that put a little bit more focus into sevens, they start getting those players to those opportunities to play at the highest levels, and the skill set you build it's rugby. I mean, you're learning the fundamental skills of the game in an advanced format with more people on the field, and it's just going to transition into the 15s game so well, you know? So I think Florida needs to put a little bit more focus on that, and that's what I'm trying to do with Stormers. And, you know, and it was part of that original thing where what Ryan was trying to do with SoFlo as well.
Well, Lance, when does league? I know you guys obviously aren't done with the union season yet. You got a game against Okapi this weekend, and the playoffs coming up. When does league start going?
Somewhere around 4th of July, right before, and then it really kicks off right after.
Okay.
And stops just short of the fall season for union. So
we have a fall season in union. That's just a joke, obviously. But yeah, I'm looking forward to you guys and seeing what you can do on the league side of things. And listen, my Surf and Sevens tournament is June 5th. I expect a good elite division. I want to see the Stormers in there. I want to see SoFlo in there. I got a team coming from England, and I really hope we can get things going. But Lance, I'll let you have the last word. I know we talked about Javon at the start of this. Just talk about what he meant for that club for you guys.
Well,
if you can, I know it's hard.
Yeah, I don't know how much y'all spoke on him, but
no, we were just saying we obviously heard the news this weekend, and I know he was a big part of what SoFlo had going on. But you guys know way better than we do.
I can only speak. I'm gonna speak for me personally, right? I moved here the end of 2019. He was one of the SoFlo people I met. Made it really easy for me to move here, be away from my friends, be away from my family. Great dude, bright, intelligent, hard worker, does what he can for his family, entrepreneur. I mean, I can't speak enough about the human being he is. I got to see him week to week, teach him what I knew about rugby in my role as a coach, teach him the steps that he needs to take to score and to finish and to do all the things that to make him a better rugby player. And he just took it in and he just kept getting better. He just needed more time and more. I mean, think about who we were just playing. These guys are D1 athletes, right? Bona fide athletes. And his first real touch, he takes 3 of them to the house. Like, I mean, work had to be done. I can't even, like, I've been watching that highlight ever since I got the news, just kind of like, man, me and him didn't even get to talk about it. And I'm just thinking, like, I don't even know if I make that play. Like, the potential of this man in rugby, the potential in him as a man, the businesses he created for him and his family, the things he was willing to do to get ahead for him and his family. I'm going to miss him. I've been thinking about him since I got the news. Yesterday was a drag. Today was a drag. Tomorrow will get better. And for us as a team, we haven't really talked about, you know, rallying around him or rallying behind him. But I think from what I've been hearing from everybody, we got that feeling that he was special. This is special. And every step we take needs to have respect of a great dude was with us and isn't anymore. So let's take every day how we supposed to. And I mean, condolences to his family. I got love for him, real love. And it seemed like only yesterday I was talking to him because just Friday I was talking to him and we was competing together. So it's still fresh to me. It's people that's hurting way more than me. So I don't want to get into some, victim thing, or I'm the, I got love for the guy. I got love for everything he stood for as a man. And
everybody, all the comments I saw online today were obviously overwhelmingly positive about his impact and his future. And yeah, it's a sad day, but listen, Lance, I appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening.
Thank you very much.
Good luck with the rest of the way. I know you got a game on Saturday. I hope you guys will give a copy a nice match to finish off the regular season. And I think you're up at Daytona, I think, on the 10th. Listen, those boys have been playing well this season, but I think you guys can give them a shot, give them a run for their money.
Anything's possible. We out here to win it. So I appreciate you guys, Ronnie, Charlie, Ross. I appreciate you. You stay awesome. I'm gonna keep watching the show. God bless
Cheers,
you
Lance.
all.
Thank you, man.
We'll see you out on the pitch somewhere, mate. Appreciate you.
So
great to speak to Lance from SoFlo about that game on Friday night. It was, I think it wasn't particularly well promoted. I'm not sure everybody knew about it. We tried to give it as much love as we could, but I think down the road, perhaps this game could have an impact if they perhaps come back next year, Colorado, if they keep things going, and just to get SoFlo's name out there with Colorado's great social media presence that they've had and this documentary thing that's going on, and people out there are going to know who SoFlo are in Colorado, which is obviously one of the hubs of American rugby. All right, Charlie, we're getting on towards 9 o'clock here. Let's get to the rest of what we do have highlight-wise on the U19 side of things.
Let's quickly look at the Gibbons
Jacks. This game, I thought Gibbons had a chance in this game. Jacksonville came down a little short-handed from what I heard. There's Pancho Lopez with that great whistle tone, learned from his son, obviously. That's the first thing I noticed in this highlight. I said, man, this was the first kick went out into touch. But
man, with that field, I think there were 4 kickoffs that went directly into touch, 4 or 5.
It's narrow. Listen, Rocky, their coach, and Eric Woody, they know what's going on. They know what they've got talent-wise. They know where their strength is, and Jacksonville just weren't ready for this. There's Brock Weaver, who scored a couple of tries on the day. He's someone I might take a look at for some USA Eagle stuff. He's only a sophomore and a big boy. He's playing number 8. I'm not sure if that's where his future lies. He's probably a prop down the road, but he's got some serious athleticism and some aggression. The number 8 there, he's probably 6'2", 260 as a sophomore. And Gibbons just came out and pounded the boys from Jacks. Just, lots of stuff off the fringes here. Jack O'Keefe had 3 tries on the day. Listen, as I said to you, Charlie, I know Charlie doesn't like this ground and pound, this bash and crash rugby, but this is what Gibbons have. They have big athletes that play football. Their football teams won a couple of back-to-back state championships, and they've got wrestlers. They've had speed in the past. They don't have a ton of speed on this team, but they don't. Even if they did, they don't have as much chance to expose it or to use it, I should say, on the narrow field. So listen, they just play pick and go, short stuff, crash and bash.
I like more the poetry part of rugby. The really delicate things.
I know you do, but listen, when you've got kids that have played a year or 2 of rugby, the easiest thing to teach them is here's the ball, run forward and just destroy people. As long as you know what to do when you get tackled, you can teach kids that. And as long as you can maintain possession, you can march down the field. And that's exactly what they've done this season. Again, they got to a late start due to football and then had a COVID issue. And as you and I have discussed, Charlie, Gibbons play Cape this weekend. If they beat Cape this weekend, they got to play Okapi in the quarterfinals. I know Okapi doesn't want to see them because these boys are getting better each and every week and have some serious athletes. They're well coached, and all they got to do is just keep. Listen, I refed them against Key Biscayne, and Key Biscayne must have made I don't know how many tackles. You can't keep making tackles, especially as the weather gets hotter. Making tackles like that as much as you do on the fringes is going to wear you down. Ronnie coached 15s. He knows. I'm sure he's played teams like this, Ronnie.
Oh yeah.
Or just want to ground and pound you.
Yep. Especially on a small width field.
So what do you do, Ronnie, to beat?
Yeah. How do you defend a team like this? Don't give any secrets away. But how do you defend a team like this that just?
No. How do you win? How do you win?
Physical player after physical. I mean, we saw they tied, but they only won. Is this their first win, Charlie?
It is actually. Yes.
Yeah. You have to adapt. You have to adapt. I mean, you have to adapt to the environment. I mean, I'll admit, as an FIU, as a coach at FIU, teams hate playing on our turf. They absolutely hate it. So, you have to, if you're that team that's coming there and don't like playing on turf and don't like playing on a small field, you have to figure out ways to adapt and adjust to that situation. That's the only way you can beat a team. You can't especially here at high school level, we're not as advanced where we're looking at tape and going over analysis of teams the week prior. It's more about trying to find the little things and do those little things and that's how we beat teams.
This Brock Weaver just continue to run over people there as we get into the 50s here, 40s and 50s with Gibbons.
Ronnie, you say you have to adapt, but wouldn't you have you would have a plan beforehand, right, on how you're going to play the game?
Yeah. I mean, you
always have to adapt.
Yeah, but you have to adapt to the situation, and I mean, there's little things, right? So, say for example, and we had this idea like we did this year with Okapi where we had Okapi U23 we were supposed to play Palm Beach and we had kind of set that we were going to be kicking into their tri zone thinking that they had long tri zones and then we go up to Palm Beach and those Palm Beach tri zones are like that wide, so it's like, okay, we got to throw that out, we got to adapt, like, okay, we're not going to go for that, so it's just changing up the tactics on what you're going to do and play, depending on where you're at and what you're given.
I'm getting grief from Okapi already, Charlie, mentioning that they already beat Jacksonville. Already beat Cardinal Gibbons, excuse me. But I do want to make sure that game was a 28-10 game. 2 of those tries were very questionable due to some knock-ons missed in the lead up. And Cardinal Gibbons didn't have any of their wrestlers at that point. Their wrestling season finished a couple of weeks ago, right before I refed them against Key Biscayne. They now have all their wrestlers back. I wouldn't want to play them. I'm not sure how Kate feels about this game this coming weekend that I'm going to ref, but I wouldn't want to play them on their home turf. Obviously, they'll have to travel to Okapi to play them on the 10th, who also have a turf field. I think a slightly wider turf field, though.
Yes, it is. It is.
But that game is going to be a thrill. I'm not reffing that one, but that's going to be a thrill.
Ronnie, you're going to be there on the 10th also.
That's right, yeah, because your Okapi boys play in the middle game, I think, of the 3.
You're playing Ave Maria.
No,
that's D4. Sorry,
they play Gainesville.
They play Gainesville.
Coming a long way down.
Rematch. They got to come down this time.
That was a tie, right?
Yes, sir. It was
ties. Who refs ties?
Don't tie again, okay?
That should be a great day of rugby. I know they're having a full-on youth day as well before the first. I think the first of the men's games is the men's game is the first game at 11:30.
Yes.
And then U23 is at 1:30 and 3:45 for the U19s.
Yeah, it's exciting.
That should be
exciting
an amazing day of rugby. Hopefully, the weather this weekend is supposed to be awesome in the mid 70s, which probably means that next weekend is going to be in the mid to high 80s. Ronnie, so be ready for that. So, as we said before, the high school, the U19 quarterfinals are looking super fun, and with any team, and this is one of the teams undefeated. Naples hosted Wellington this past weekend. Scott Duval refereeing this one over on the West Coast. And this was
that looks like a very nice field, also.
That field does look nice. If Wellington had won this one, I think they had a chance at hosting a quarterfinal. But Naples undefeated this season coming into this one and remain undefeated. Nice little quick tap here for the first try of the game. Naples have got some athletes, Charlie. They've got some. You look at this team just in the highlights. They've got some big boys, some big fit boys. Listen, Swiffle when they were the Naples Bears, were the powerhouse.
Oh yeah.
And they struggled for a few years, as Carlos Silva mentions in the comments. They've turned things around.
Remember that, Ronnie?
Things going. Last year they went undefeated too, Carlos. So don't mention last year. 2 years ago, they were struggling.
Back when I was coaching Miami, the Naples Bears were tough, man. Those guys used to give us some games.
Produced Cam Dola, Malachi Esdale, and obviously a lot of the kids that have stuck around and played for the Hammerheads perhaps as well, and for FGCU. Wellington hung around in this game, but Naples just too much in the end. Excuse me, Swiffle, too much in the end. And we'll go into the quarterfinals undefeated. Although, as Charlie, as you and I mentioned earlier, they have not played any of the other 3 teams in the top 4 this season. They've been a bit lucky with the schedule, although they have taken care of business every time. There haven't been in too many close matches that I can think of with Naples. Who's come closest to defeating them, Charlie, so far?
I would have to go and look. Now I can't find them because the Hammerheads.
I'm going to beat you to it.
Okay.
They are named Hammerheads U19 on your site, although their logo still says Naples Bears. Fix that, Charlie. Stat.
Oh my God. I'm gonna get some
they beat Cape 26-0. They beat Sarasota. Actually gave them their tightest match of the year. It was 22-19. Sarasota have fallen off, and Key Biscayne gave them a good run too, a 3-point victory for Naples. Yeah, as we said, I think any one of 5 or 6 teams could win this U19s, and obviously Naples. Excuse me, it's going to take a while, Charlie. Swiffle, the Hammerheads being one of these teams that could certainly win the championship. We had 2 great tries in this game. This was one of them.
Yeah.
Nice run, big tackle by the Wellington winger.
And a big crowd.
Naples reset. That's one thing would be interesting to see how that crowd makes an impact in that home. They got a home quarterfinal against Tampa, who they handled 43-12 back in late February. So that one might be the least exciting of the quarterfinals. And then they will obviously host as well the semifinal. This is a lovely little chip try here to our outside center who joined us. I can't remember his name, Charlie. Wes joined us from Australia.
He looks like the honey badger. Huh?
He does look a little like the honey badger. He's a big boy for a high school player. He also kicks. And that's Naples. I think this is Wellington actually getting a late try here. Wellington, a younger team this year, not as big. They will have to travel now to Jacksonville in the quarterfinals, which is going to be a very interesting match. Well, obviously, Jacksonville coming off that disappointing loss to Gibbons on Saturday, 54-0. But they'll be a much different team at home, I would imagine. Wellington, we'll see what they travel with. They would love to have won this game and secured a home quarterfinal, and that's the final whistle there. No, that wasn't the final whistle. It sounded like the final whistle. Scott Duval ref-fingering in his sunglasses. Now, if you're wondering why Scott refs in sunglasses, he had a detached retina a couple of years ago. Oh. So it's great that he's still able to ref. So that's another try here by Wes. Well, I think he said he's a senior, right, Charlie? He said he's done this year. He's not sure where he's going to play next year. But anybody looking at this tape will perhaps be keeping an eye on him college-wise.
Oh, yeah.
There's another little chip-through try. It was after it was a good turnover. I'm not sure where the turnover happened here.
That's what I like about these counter rug. I like these high school games that the kids take risk. Like the risks here are so much more better than our men's level.
Hey man, high school rugby is the best rugby.
Yeah, they take risk. I like
man. If I have to pick, we have to cancel all the rest of the divisions. Just keep U19s.
So we've seen the success of USA South with the 16s and the 19s, and we'll see how the Jaguars do this year.
Hey, the U23's been fun, man. This level, where it's like kids in college and then just coming out of college, that's a quality group of teams.
Listen, there's a reason Brendan Keane hired me to be the scout, sir. There's a lot of hidden talent down here. It just needs to be. Carlos says Scott needs to lose the beard. He's out of his mind. All right. Before we get to our other scores, Charlie, let's remind everybody of our sponsor, 401kfl.com. Everyone that's still hanging in with us here at 5 to 9. If you have a 401k or want a 401k or even run a 401k, the team at 401kfl has the experience to tackle your retirement needs and goals. Visit 401kfl.com to kick things off. Let's take a quick look at the scores from this past weekend, Charlie. From around the state. Zoom in there a little bit. There wasn't too many games. There was a lot of cancellations due to teams forfeiting and just saying we're done till the playoffs. Pelicans knocked off Sarasota 37-7. Both those teams will play in the D3 playoffs coming up. We saw Orlando Women knock off Tampa. They doubled them up 38-19. Fort Miami with the forfeit win over Indian River. We won't talk about that Boca score or the Gibbons score. We already mentioned those. Hammerheads in that game you just saw there. 31-20. So a quiet week, and another relatively quiet week coming up, Charlie, because most of the teams don't start their playoffs until the 10th, but there are some sort of play-in games, we should call it. So let's get to our games for the 3rd. As you can see, Charlie navigating his own beautiful website with great efficiency.
We just have these games.
Yeah, a very quiet week. It is Easter weekend. For some reason, we decided to play rugby on Easter weekend, but that's neither here or there. We do have some referees hanging around that aren't going to zoom in. Charlie, give me a little closer look here. We do have some referees hanging around like myself that aren't going to. Even though I'm the only ref not listed there, I am refereeing that game at the bottom. Charlie, I'll ignore that. I'll ignore that. So we have Orlando hosting Miami with Haley Stoll as ref. The winner of that game will take on Naples in the D2 semifinals. Then we have Crew hosting Boca. The winner of that game will play the Tridents in Miami. I think some people may be disappointed that Boca and Tridents, perhaps the two best teams in D2, though Naples not far behind. Disappointing to see that the Boca and the Tridents will play each other in the semis. Naples perhaps with the easier route to the final. Jacksonville hosts Sarasota. The winner of that game going to Charlie, remind me, Palm Beach, right?
It's
yes, the winner of that game going to Palm Beach because Brevard are playing the Pellies on the 17th in the other semifinal. So the winner of Jack Sarasota gets to go to Palm Beach on the 17th and play that juggernaut, who obviously knocked off the Tridents and Boca this season. And we have one D4 regular season game, which we mentioned already with Lance Soflo hosting Okapi, and then the game that I'm reffing, Cardinal Gibbons at home against Pirates. The winner of that game will visit Okapi on the 10th in the U19 quarterfinals. So not many games, but a lot of key games, Charlie. All these games matter except for the Soflo Okapi game, which is just the end of the regular season and does not reflect on the playoffs because the playoffs are already set for D4. So what about predictions, Charlie? We're going to do some predictions here. Orlando, Miami. Yes, right now. Orlando, Miami. I think Orlando win that one, right?
Orlando, yes.
Miami, you haven't won a game all season.
Tampa, Boca. I'm not sure.
This is the most interesting match of the weekend. There's no doubt. I refereed this game as a friendly in Boca to start the season. Tampa, obviously, things were a lot different back then. Tampa are bigger than Boca. They've got some big boys up front. Boca struggled in the scrum against the Tridents recently. I think, was it 3 or 4 pushover tries? But I think Boca just has enough to win that game. I think depending on, listen, it really matters on an Easter weekend. Who do you have to travel, right? Do you have your full team, or do you have some?
Yeah, man.
Do you have 3 of your starters getting dragged away from the wife due to a family lunch on Sunday? Right,
I have a feeling that this is going to Tampa. You know, I have a.
You think it's going to Tampa? All right, we're going to disagree on that one. Jack Sarasota. I have no idea who's winning this one. Both teams. I mean, it's just a complete crapshoot. Sarasota with a very disappointing loss to Pelly's. I'm going to go with Jacksonville at home in that one.
Yeah.
And then Gibbons, Cape Pirates. Cape Pirates, I think, they won 1 game, Charlie?
I think they won 1, yes. But yeah,
they struggled with the numbers all year. They battled all the way through the season. Hopefully they bring a decent squad down to play the Gibbons. They've had a week. They didn't play last week, so they've had a week off. But I think Gibbons just has too much in the size department for Cape Pirates. It'll be good to see Brock Roper down, coaching the former Cape Pirates player, coaching them now. Be good to catch up with him again.
Okay, we can start betting money next week. Okay, on the 10th.
Yes, next week's when things get serious.
Okay,
we're not going to get to the 10th yet. Do we have any rugby memorabilia entries? Ronnie promised he was going to give us a rugby memorabilia entry this week.
I didn't, but I do have something that I
was going to say. You've probably got something in your gaming chair as you leave your gaming chair. He's probably got something within arm's reach. Yeah, so Ronnie has one of the most impressive backgrounds in rugby, Florida rugby.
So
what do you got for us? What do you got for us?
My memorabilia is, and Charlie will remember this. This is from San Martin. This is a trophy that we got from it's a team from Argentina that came here to play at Ruggerfest.
What happened?
Well, that's why I'm sharing. That's why I'm sharing. So this is actually the only trophy from FIU that I have in my house. Like everything else is at the university. But
okay,
I kept this trophy as a memory because we went into this tournament to play San Martin thinking that, okay, well, we're a college side and these guys were U19. No, U19
18. Yeah, U18.
Yeah, I think they were U18. And I know that they were seniors. They were basically high school seniors, like a group of high school seniors. And they absolutely beat the hell out of us. And it was funny because we had Barry starting, Barry who plays 8-man at Tampa.
Barrington McNutt, yes.
Yeah, so Barry, well, we were trialing him at center, and we were when we were warming up. We were warming up, Barry's at center, and a couple of our Argentinian boys overheard them, and they were like, "Man, that guy's big." Like that.
He's not a center. He's what? He's probably 6'5", 260, right?
Yeah, he's huge. And the first play of the game, Barry gets the ball and knocks on, and these guys were like, "Oh, this is cake." And after that, we were done. They smoked us, man. They gave us a good beatdown, but it was a great game, and it was eye-opening for our guys, to understand that, playing the game, at a level where you're doing this, where you live rugby and you live and die rugby, and you play the game with passion, that it doesn't matter what age you are, you can take out anybody. And it was good, man. But that's their trophy. It's it's a rugby pitch.
That's a cool looking little trophy. I don't know how managed to get that from Argentina without breaking. I give TSA credit for that.
I remember one of
works at the airport. That's surprising.
I remember one of the front rows. I think it was Abraham saying, "Damn, this is like the first time I actually learned what is to scrum." Like he could not believe it.
Oh yeah,
and that was a fun game.
All right, Charlie, it's 9:01. We're not going to have time for open mic, as Pancho points out. Cisco ref that game.
This was open mic.
This was open mic. Yeah, I think we'll have other stuff to talk about next week because we don't have a ton of games to talk about next week. So we'll have a longer open mic next week for sure. When we have plenty of time. Amelia wants to say goodnight. She's heading to bed.
Hi, Amelia. Bye.
She had softball strength training tonight as well as hitting. And she got more softball tomorrow, then strength training again Wednesday, and then softball again on Thursday. So she had got a week off last week. Now she's making up for it. But Ronnie, it's good to see you, my man.
It's good to see you.
It's been a while.
Thank you very much, Ronnie. Good luck in Tropical Sevens.
Best of luck, Tropical Sevens, obviously next week in the U23 playoffs.
Yep. What were you gonna say, Charlie?
Bring some hardware from Tropical if you can.
That's the goal. You know, that's the goal. We got a strong challenge ahead of us, but you know,
who's in your bracket? Who's in your bracket that scares you?
Everybody.
Ross, you know me, man. I rate everybody and I don't rate everybody. So so it's like, you know, I just kind of stay focused on our group, you know, make sure that we're doing, you know, we're playing under our non-negotiables and we're playing our way, and hopefully, you know, we make the things happen, you know, on the day of. So
listen, you know, you played more rugby than some of these other guys will have, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Depending where they're coming from. So I think you've got that going your way. It's just down the road. You're not traveling, you know, thousands of miles.
Yeah. And
so we expect a trophy, nothing less. You're not coming back on.
Definitely.
All right, boys. Well, Charlie posted there all episodes. You can check out the video podcast replay if you missed tonight's episode at rugbyfl.com/tfro via YouTube, or you can check it out on the Facebook page as well. As we always post, Charlie posts the Matt Crow wants to play. I think you're over 23, Matt.
He is.
The Harpooners don't have a team for you?
It's his experience that's preventing him from playing.
Exactly.
I was told this guy was going to play against the Colorado guys, and he didn't show up. So
okay. We'll get into that next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can check out all our episodes available on podcasts as just audio formats. You don't need to see our ugly faces. It's the way to do it, really. You did miss the highlights, but you can always go back and check those out on Charlie's YouTube page as well. But any major podcast platform, Apple iTunes, Spotify, whatever the one that I use is, Overcast is the one that I use. We're available on there too. So check us out there. We'll see you again next week. We'll have lots of things to talk about.
Next time you guys have me on, man, make sure Vassal's here so I can talk trash with him.
Listen, he said he was going to be here. He did say he was out of town, but he was going to be here about 8 o'clock and then bailed. Listen, I'm not sure what happened. Whether he got into a big meal, lost his computer. I don't know.
He was still driving. He was coming off from Tampa. So
CB's a busy man. He travels all over the place. Works
okay.
Works wherever people need to get him to work. He'll be there.
It's time to go.
Charlie,
it's time to go.
It's time to go.
Thank you, Ronnie.
Amelia says goodbye.
Bye, Amelia.
See you, boys, and see you next week. Good luck to everybody in the playoffs this week.
Bye-bye.